What's up, good people? My name is AJ and you are watching Straight Talks. Today's video is about a common misconception that you see all the time in the online investing forums, on finance TikTok, and from the personal finance YouTube channels. For some reason, Vanguard has gotten this reputation of having the cheapest or best investment products out there, and it is simply not true. Please don't get me wrong, this is not a problem with Vanguard itself. Vanguard is a fine company that has good investment products. In fact, in the investment models at the firm that I work for, we use 2 Vanguard ETFs, and I'm partly the reason for that. The problem, though, is with the reputation that people have given Vanguard, and more importantly with the fact that people have been misled from the finance community and almost have been forced to believe that Vanguard is simply the best. I keep getting the comment about how great Vanguard is in my TikToks. If you're on TikTok, follow me there. So I really wanted to make a longer video addressing it. Just for the sake of establishing some credibility, I'm a CFA charter holder and a CFP professional, and I work on the investment committee of a private wealth management firm where we manage the model portfolios for thousands of clients. It is my job to know what I'm talking about here. And I need to address this common misconception in this space that people have. I would love for some of the bigger YouTube channels that have talked about Vanguard funds in their videos to see this one. People like Graham Stephan, Nate O'Brien, and Andre Jick all have good intentions, but they are not seeing the whole story. So instead of me asking you to like and subscribe, I'm going to ask that you hear me out here. If you think this argument makes sense, then please, everyone who thinks so, tag all of them or one of them in this video in the comments down below and share this video with them to hopefully draw their attention to this topic. I'm passionate about this problem, so I would really appreciate it. In Vanguard's defense, they do have the lowest average expense ratio throughout their entire investment suite of the index fund providers out there. But that fact is not helpful for how people actually invest their money. People don't pick a basket of 70 funds and then leave all of their wealth parked in them. Most people who are managing their own finances have a majority of their assets in anywhere from 2 to 10 different funds. So here's the core problem with this Vanguard misconception. The 3 biggest Vanguard funds by AUM, or assets under management, which means the total amount of money that's invested in those funds, are VFIAX, VTSAX, and VOO. Every single one of those funds has a directly comparable alternative that in some cases is really an exact duplicate of that fund at a lower expense ratio. I mean, Fidelity has 0.00% expense ratio funds. So I just have no idea where the personal finance community has gotten this idea that Vanguard is always the cheapest option. The reality is that for most common asset classes where most people invest most of their money, Vanguard is almost never the cheapest option. Since these funds are all low expense funds, the other options that I'm mentioning are only 1 or 3 basis points cheaper than the Vanguard fund, which depending on who you are, might not be that big of a deal. Again, I'm not faulting Vanguard themselves here, and I don't have any problem with the expense ratios they charge. The issue is that millions of people have been led to believe that Vanguard is the best fund family or the cheapest fund family to invest in. I've made another video about the problems I see with indexed investing in general, but that's an entirely separate topic. Personally, I have most of my money invested between 3 different funds, each of which has expense ratios over 1%, and one of them has an expense ratio over 2%. The fact is that these 3 funds have historically outperformed their benchmarks in the markets that I'm investing in by more than their expense ratios. For this reason, I see all those as great investment options for me. Now, I don't actually believe everyone should invest their money in actively managed or complex funds like I'm using, because if you don't know what you're getting into, it can end up costing you more than it's worth. And the value of the simplicity in investing in passive investments is worth mentioning. But for people who are able to save up to $50,000 or $100,000, there's a great argument to be made that they should start to consider more complex investments that have the opportunity to earn them much more return than index funds can. People in this asset range should probably be fairly comfortable with the general principles of investing, which is why I think that they can start to branch out from there. So if any of those prominent YouTubers that I mentioned before are watching this, you should seriously consider some of those options. I know you might like to have the specifics of what I'm talking about here, but I'm a licensed investment advisor and a CFA charter holder. I can't just make public statements that could even be seen as investment advice. So like Warren Buffett says, passive investing with fund companies like Vanguard is the best option for most people. And I totally believe in that. In some cases, it's more important to simplify investing rather than to try to optimize it, because more people will feel comfortable about investing their money that way. And Vanguard actually does a good job at this, so I'm a fan of them for it. But in many cases, they simply are not the cheapest option out there, like many people have been misled to believe. Now, all this presents a very interesting question to me. How is it exactly that Vanguard has developed this widely accepted reputation for something that I've just explained to you is just not true? And I have to say, I don't think that in our capitalist, competitive economy that we operate in the United States and here today, brand reputations for major corporations could just happen by accident. My first thought was maybe a trend kind of started on the internet 10 years ago on Reddit or some forum, and then that mentality kind of snowballed to some other people and they made content and it kind of just spread that way. It's also true that maybe 20 years ago or so, when there were very few passive or ETF investment options, Vanguard may very well have been the cheapest across the board. But the fact that they have maintained this reputation, despite that very belief not being true, I think is probably the result of some genius marketing. Vanguard really does not have any ads, commercial, print, or otherwise, that tell us that they're the cheapest index fund provider out there. And they couldn't advertise that if they wanted to because they know it's not true. I think that by some indirect advertising or some smart targeting marketing efforts, they have been the very reason that their reputation of being the simplest or cheapest fund provider has held true. I just don't want that false reality to persist for too much longer. I want to address some of the comments from my prior video about Vanguard and index investing, and then also some of the popular comments on other people's various videos talking about how great Vanguard is. On one video, Marco from Whiteboard Finance said, "Vanguard index funds are the most hands-off way to become very wealthy over time." This is just not true. It's like saying Honda Civics have the most circular steering wheels in the entire auto industry. First of all, every steering wheel is equally as circular as the Honda Civic steering wheel, just as every fund family is equally hands-off to use as Vanguard. Vanguard just has no advantage here. It's just another example of this weird notion people have that Vanguard is the best. One comment on a Graham Stephan video said, "Nate and Graham Stephan are two of my favorite personal finance YouTubers. Very straightforward and honest with everything that they teach, and they're just overall good-hearted, trustworthy guys." And I totally agree with this, but the fact that they are so well respected just helps to spread this misinformation. Again, there's nothing wrong with Vanguard, but them telling everyone that it is somehow the cheapest or the best is wrong. From another one of my videos, love Vanguard and would suggest for really anyone, Lowe's fees, got my Roth over there, gonna start somewhere. This person sounds like they've had the notion that Vanguard is the best and cheapest option pounded into their head so many times that they now suggest it for everyone. And I'm sure this person doesn't know that what they're actually suggesting is a relatively more expensive investment option in most cases. Chris Invest says, "It really does not get much simpler than investing in a Vanguard indexed fund. It is equally as simple to buy any indexed or mutual fund." So I don't mean to call anyone out or say anyone is stupid for any of those comments. I just want to draw attention to the fact that this is a commonly held belief, especially on YouTube and in other online and finance forums. Now I want to make a separate point about Vanguard investments and the actual allocations within their indexed funds. There is a very valid case to be made that some of Vanguard's funds do not exactly follow the benchmarks for which that fund is stated to follow. I can't mention any specifics here because that could appear as an investment recommendation against a certain fund. But among the ETF industry, I'll just tell you firsthand, a lot of proponents argue that Vanguard is not a true indexer in certain cases, and in some of those cases, I agree with them. Not all, but certain Vanguard funds do deviate from their stated benchmarks. This is due to how and when Vanguard chooses to rebalance their funds and how different asset classes move differently. It's for those reasons in certain asset classes that the investment committee I work on has decided against Vanguard and rather in favor of other ETFs in certain portfolios. Look, you could try to argue I'm splitting hairs here since the deviations aren't very significant, but the point I'm trying to make is that Vanguard is not perfect. I don't like seeing the idea that Vanguard is the best, which I'm showing you just is not true. So let me know in the comments down below what you all think about my argument here. If you agree, like I asked earlier, please start to tag and comment the names of those channels that I mentioned, Graham Stephan, Nate O'Brien, so that maybe we could get some recognition to this topic. If you disagree, let me know that too. I could be missing something here, and I'm happy to debate any topic or any angle of this conversation. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.